free-to-play people were certainly digging their own hole in doing this with children's games. And if you haven't followed what's happening, the Europeans are now talking to both Apple and Google about this. The Europeans are upset about free-to-play, particularly at apps aimed at children. So it's possible Apple's going to step in and take children's games and say, you can't do this anymore. It's possible. It's interesting, about the same time this happened, a game called Freeze, T-H-R-E-E-S, came out on the iPhone as a paid app and became very popular as a children's game. So that's interesting. I mean, so that's one thing. The other thing is this. I don't know if you're aware of this little tidbit. So basically what it's saying is only about 1.5% of people actually buy any of this content, at least in mobile games. So what these games are relying on are, in a nutshell, people who are obsessed with the games who will make in-app purchases. So we have decided as a company not to do this anymore. We have some free-to-play games out there, and poker's a great game, and it makes money in terms of users playing it and buying things. But in terms of new stuff, we're totally focused on a different market altogether. We're actually doing real casino games in the UK. So we have a game on the iPhone called, originally it was called Slots Cash, now it's called Casino Cash, and it is a real money game with real cash being wagered, because that's legal in the UK and Apple approved it and all that. So basically what they do is they have to put money in, they have to deposit money into an account. So it's pretty real. And you know, some of them, people tend to spend moderately. They tend to not spend tremendous amounts, but the revenue figures, like if you look at this thing here, it says the average in-app purchase, which is only 1.5% users, is like $6. 67% of all spending dedicated items, and 1 is 5%. And so most people in the free-to-play space are buying very little, but in the casino space, people tend to spend like $10, $20, $30 in a day. They tend to lose that much, maybe $10, but they play for a long time because the odds are very good. And the thing is, they can actually win money. We've seen people win $3,000 or $4,000 in a day. So it's a casino, and it has a real casino. It's a completely different thing in a way because you're building real casino apps. There's a whole set of skills and rules and regulations. It's not like free to play. But what's going on in free to play is almost like a race to the bottom. Companies are basically giving away the games and hoping they can basically cajole people into buying things. And you look at the AAA video game market. If it goes to free to play, that'll be very interesting to see how it works out. Well, it's kind of interesting because that's a hardcore game, and it makes sense for them to do what they're doing. And they got the model working, so you can't complain about. I can't complain what they've done. They've done a really nice job. First of all, it's a fabulous game. I wish it was on the Mac. I love World of Tanks. I played it at a couple of shows. I like the World of Warplanes. I like the World of Warships that's coming out. That's a hardcore game. What they've done is they've said, okay, the game is free, but if you want these special things, you can buy them. That's fine. That's a good model. It's not the same model as you must have these things in order to succeed. It's not that at all. So it's kind of, this is like, free-to-play is a good thing and a bad thing. It depends on how it's used. Obviously, I'm not a fan of it in children's games because of the abuse that's occurred, but it makes sense to do it in a lot of games, So I'm looking at, like, for example, if I look at Pet Rescue Saga, which looks like a children's game, there are a lot of items in there, but they tend to be pretty cheap items, $2 and $1 items. But I've seen games that have like $100 items in there, and they're kids' games. That's kind of unfair. Yeah, I mean, it's like it kind of depends on the model. I mean, like you said, World of Tanks. I think what's going on in some cases, people will go out and spend like $100 in one day because they want them. They get so obsessed with like succeeding at Candy Crush, they can really go nuts. But it's clear that free-to-play is a dominant trend. It dominates mobile now, totally. It may eventually dominate AAA. I think the subscription model has, we've had the subscription model forever in World of Warcraft, right? And And now, you know, you have this sort of free-to-play model with objects in World of Tanks, and so on. And what happened with mobile is it's sort of, in a way, not the same as the video game crash in the 80s, but it looks to me sort of like that economically, in that most of the companies just aren't making good money because the market is saturated, and the cost of bringing in players for most people now exceeds the value of those players. So the few companies that are making money are great, but a lot of companies aren't really happy with that. And then in the Facebook stuff, that's already gone down the road with that. With Facebook games, as you know, that's the time has sort of, the peak has sort of passed, and that's why you had this massive layoff at Disney, right? Yeah, and a lot of it's the Facebook people because that's not making money for them. So, like I said, there's things that are happening that are not easy for people to deal with. It's going to be an interesting world in the game industry. That's basically it. I mean, free-to-play makes sense for a lot of games. Free-to-play is a good thing sometimes, and not a good thing other times. And I still like the paid model. I still like the subscription model. I like the episodic model a lot. I think that's great, particularly in adventure games, because adventure games is where I came from, right? So, like in Walking Dead, you play the first episode, and if you want to play more, you buy them, you know? It's cool. We did something before there was in-app purchases on the iPhone called Light Apps, where you get the Light App for free and you have 1 or 2 levels, and if you wanted to play the game, you buy the regular app. That was what was happening in 2008 before there was in-app purchases. So in a way, the episodic games are kind of like that. I think the games where there's content that actually makes sense to buy. I want to play a puzzle. I want to play crossword puzzles. I'll buy a puzzle pack for X amount of dollars, you know, like $2, and I'll get like 50 puzzles I can play. That's cool. Where it gets interesting is, and kind of controversial, is the games that are basically what we would call Skinner boxes. If you remember, Skinner boxes was the rat would push a button or do a sequence, and then the peanut would come out, right? And there are some games that feel like that's all they're doing, and there's a lot of criticism of that in the industry. You know, these games are just games that are designed to get people who are obsessed to basically fork over big cash. So you have a small fraction of users spending a lot of money, and that may be some people consider it to be unethical. That's it. Well, it's funny you mentioned the candy thing, because I think candy is crazy. I think that's a crazy trademark. I don't like it. But recently, a bunch of independent developers got together and they, where is it? I'll find the link. They basically got together and did a bunch of games on trolling the Candy Crush people. So these people basically trolled King. They basically built a whole bunch of games called Candy and Saga just to get back at them. Right? It's kind of funny. So I think Candy name is too generic. They dropped the trademark in the U.S. They still have it in Europe, so that's under consideration. I don't know what they're doing with Saga. As far as Flappy Bird goes, you know, Flappy Bird is interesting in a way that people haven't realized, which is it shows that people really want Nintendo-style games. And Nintendo isn't going to do them for these devices. So there's always an opportunity for someone to do a game that had that Nintendo feel, and Flappy Bird does, because it has the Nintendo-like art and graphics, right, in a game. And I was talking to our chief technical officer about Flappy Bird today, and we said, you know what, those things are like lottery tickets. You have no idea what's going to work. And occasionally they do. It's like a lottery ticket. There are some really good Flappy Bird clones. I think the game is clever in that it's so hard that it's, you know, to get any kind of score. That was kind of a clever thing. I had some ideas for funny games based on it, but I'm not going to do that because the focus is going to be on the real money games, because that's what we have expertise in. But it's not the first time. If you look at Puzzle and Dragons, are you familiar with that? Puzzle and Dragons is one of the best-selling games of all time on mobile. It's done by a company called Gung Ho in Japan. And what it is, you know how Candy Crush looks like Bejeweled? But it adds the ability with the maps and the progression. Well, Puzzle and Dragons takes the same type of Bejeweled-like jewel matching puzzle, but adds the element of Pokemon to it. You have these creatures you buy and you train and you basically do combat using the Bejeweled-like puzzle interface. And I think it did extraordinary numbers. You can just look up Puzzle and Dragons and you'll see the numbers. It's like, for a while, it was the best money-making game in the world. Made hundreds of millions of dollars, I think. It was just, let me just tell you what it made. I was curious. Okay, Puzzle and Dragons was played by 10% of Japan. So at one point in time, 10% of the entire population of Japan, by October 2013, the game had been downloaded 20 million times in Japan and over 1 million times in North America. Big hit. Daily revenue was between $2 and $3.75 million US a day. And it was in-app purchases, free game with in-app purchases. But it was like Pokemon, you're buying creatures and stuff, so it kind of makes sense. So Gamasutra says that Puzzle Dragons is an example of coercive monetization, making the players believe they are playing a skill game when in fact they're playing a money game, enticing players to spend more and more money. Anyway, the article is here. You can read all about Puzzle and Dragons. But I think one of the things that says about Puzzle and Dragons and Flappy Bird is that there's a hunger for classic Nintendo-style games. I still think Nintendo should take the classic catalog and bring it to mobile and keep the new stuff on their own platform, but that may not happen. Nintendo is not keen on giving up yet on the handhelds. Flappy Bird, big surprise. I had an idea for a really sick game that I should mention. I'm not going to mention it because someone will do it and then I'll feel bad, but I had an idea for a really sick demented game based on Flappy Birds that was really funny. But no, I can't. We can't do that. We can't just keep chasing every whim we have, otherwise it's going out of your mind. You got to focus in this industry. Yeah, just and SNES and NES games would be perfect. And there's been I have a game on my iPhone that was on the App Store for one day and came off called Duck Hunt VR. And what it is it's NES Duck Hunt, except that you actually hold the phone and it shows you what you're looking at behind the scene, and the ducks appear and you shoot them. But it's exactly like Duck Hunt, the original NES Duck Hunt. And that game was fun. Yeah, I don't know what would hurt them. I mean, it's almost like a philosophical thing. Someone has done some analysis and said they wouldn't make that much money doing it. But remember, same thing happened to Sega. Sega was a hardware company and they had to back out of it. And it's not clear that Nintendo's going to do well. The new the Wii U hasn't really done that well, and for them, it hasn't done as well as they'd like to. There's a lot of things going on. Microsoft has new management. What is Microsoft going to do with the Xbox One? I'd love the new PlayStation, and I don't know if I've ever said this, but I think Sony has pushed some of the best games in the industry out on that platform. Their Last of Us is one of the greatest games ever made, so I'll just say that. Have it been? Yeah, maybe so. And there's a Titan game coming out or something like that. And the sequel, the Halo people did originally do Halo, or people originally did Call of Duty are doing something pretty fantastic. I hear something about Titan or whatever. The original Call of Duty people. So that's pretty cool. But the Last of Us, which was a PlayStation title, was fantastic. And but as I said, MySpace is casual and mobile, and now it's basically casino games and lottery games, because the reason we do that is so straightforward. It's so hard to do right. It takes so much skill and so much technical expertise that we feel we're not going to be chased by 1 million people. In the game industry, like with the stuff we've done in the past, this casual games, the play for fun games, you've got so many people in that space because so many people are convinced they can make a fortune at it that it got a little crowded. Sort of like what happened in the early crash in the video game industry, where everyone chased video games and and just got flooded with too much titles. So we'll see what happens. Exactly what they would do. It's exactly the episodic thing I talked about. They would basically still sell it, but they'd have extra levels you could buy. Yeah, there's this. I don't know if I have this Electronic Arts cartoon, but there's this Electronic Arts interview cartoon. Have you seen it? Yeah, well, I worked for years to bring adventure games, to make adventure games. So I started in the game industry doing some strategic games and stuff, and my goal was always, my first 15 years in the industry was adventure games. I wanted to do adventure games. I wanted to build the best adventure game system, the best adventure game team, and that led to Return to Zork. And then the market sort of disappeared with first-person shooters. Like I always say, Quake-doomed adventure games. It's a very cute little phrase, but it's true. When first-person shooters came out, they made a lot of sense because Adventure games were getting to be way too expensive to build in those dollars in those days. The first-person shooters were less expensive in those days. They were more visceral. People liked them better. You know, LucasArts, Activision, Sierra, we all sort of dropped out of the mix, even though you still play Monkey Island, it's really good. And I go to the indie scene, you'll see adventure games. So when I looked at The Walking Dead, it's an adventure game. Yeah, it has these arcade little things you do, but it's an adventure game. And in some ways, so is The Last of Us. The Last of Us is an adventure game, except that the methodology there is building weapons and stuff and a little bit of shooting and stuff, but it's still an epic story that you uncover with this character, Ellie, and yourself traveling through this post-apocalyptic world in the same way The Walking Dead is, you know? Yeah. Maybe Ellie's from The Walking Dead. I don't know which one is which girl is which game. Very similar. They both have a guy and a younger girl. It's very interesting how they did that. It's an interesting plot in them. So anyway, take a look at the job interview at EA. It's perfect. The thing about The Last of Us is, first of all, it's an original story. And, you know, we had the one about the island. What was that called, where they ran the trailer had this scene running in backwards time. You know, they're on an island, and it's a vacation. They run it from the end of the story in reverse. I forget what that's called. Blood Island, Death Island, I don't know. Dead Island, right. That was clever. But The Last of Us, the story, the opening, and the whole opening sequence, is better than any zombie movie or zombie TV show. It's better. And when you compare that to World War Z or The Walking Dead, it's a better story. It's better crafted. It's like an achievement. It must have been insane to work on, because they have to make the story work, and yet they have to have all this game going on at the same time. So, you know, in The Walking Dead, it's a more traditional interruptible media type of adventure game. You watch a little bit of sequence, and then you make some decisions. Then you watch a little bit of sequence and make some decisions. In The Last of Us, it's a pure game, but the story is all there. You know, you are actually always doing something, yet the story is unfolding. It is a fantastic game. Mobile and Facebook, but particularly mobile now, has opened up a whole new world of gamers that never played games. You know, the console game market is still seems to be the same people it was 10 or even 20 years ago. Mostly men, mostly hardcore gamers. But the whole mobile space offered, you know, the whole word game thing and the casino games, and totally opened the market up. It wasn't like that. So people, you know, but I think, you know, one of the things I hear from a lot of casual game people is they want to try to move to Xbox Live and all that. They want to try to they realize that mobile's really crowded, and they're trying to figure out what they can do to see if console people will play these type of games. Pretty interesting idea, you know. Well, we've done a whole bunch of, we've done amazing puzzle games over the years, amazing arcade games on mobile. We have Match 3D, which is a work of art, 2009, 3D puzzle game. We have Bag Bigfoot, which is this strategy game of, you know, trying to trap the Bigfoot character on a hexagonal map. We have word games, Word Carnival, Crippler. We have other puzzle games like Pigs a Popping and Mystic Duels. We have a game that's like a pachinko game called Bounce Trap. We have a homage to the classic Kaboom. Remember Kaboom, the Atari game, called Bailout Bonanza. We did a lot of that, years of that. You know, the history of the company is that the original company was called MyNimmo. It was founded in 2006, and then the assets were acquired by Playscreen in 2010. So we have years and years of that, and some of them are, you know, like our most downloaded game in terms of volume is the Bocce Ball game. And Bocce Ball organically hit #1 in Italy, and it's just a Bocce Ball game that you flick the ball and all that. It's good. It's not a huge moneymaker, but it hit over a million downloads. That's something to say. You know, it's hard to do. So yeah, we did a lot of that. But what we realized is this: there was a couple trends that were going on that were very difficult to deal with. One was everything is moving to free-to-play to make money. It's very hard to sell paid apps. I still, once again, recommend that small developers consider just doing paid apps and hoping to get a hit, or doing ad-supported apps like Flappy Bird, where you don't make much money, but you might have a hit because it takes off. That's still a sort of pie-in-the-sky approach, but that makes sense. But with free-to-play, you have to buy the users to get them in, and it costs a lot of money. I mean, Word Carnival, for example, is the best find a word game in the world, but it doesn't matter because we just can't justify going off and spending the marketing dollars to really make it fly. So we had people in the our chief technical officer, Sherry Quano, had done online casino gambling in the 1990s. We knew we had an advantage there, and we have a gorgeous game. Okay, well here, okay, UK. First of all, UK. This is the actual game itself, complete screen gameplay of the new casino case. UK betting and gambling is a big part of the culture in a way that's not in America. For example, we're not doing sports betting, but sports betting is so popular in the United Kingdom and totally legal that there are more sports betting parlors in the United Kingdom than there are Starbucks in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of Starbucks. Two, even stuff like bingo, like we did in this thing here, we try to support cultural memes. So like this bingo game and a scratchers game that are basically football, but what that means is soccer. You know, their football is soccer. So we have football-themed games, and the bingo game itself is the type of bingo they play there, not the type of bingo you would play necessarily at a bingo parlor in the United States. Scratch cards, you know, well, scratch cards are popular with lottery, but once again, the themes we do have to be culturally appropriate. So our market for real money games right now is the United Kingdom because that's a legal market with licensing. Apple's okay with that. Everyone's okay with that. Apple's not involved in terms of purchasing the game, but they let us distribute it through the App Store and all that, and we basically have the payments handled by our partner. So yeah, I mean, you have to be aware of the cultures. Like, for example, I have been in Europe recently. You can look at my Facebook page if you want to laugh. I went to Europe, and I basically spoke at 2 conferences and also met with a lot of different companies, lottery companies and casino people in Europe. And it's a different culture. There are different likes and dislikes. You know, the casino players are... Oh, here's an interesting statistic. One would think that the people who play casino games would also be playing real money casino games, would also be playing play for fun games. There turns out to be very little crossover. I don't want to quote the exact numbers, but it's in single-digit percentages of the people who play both. People really... Well, I'm just watching something weird out the window. People really either play real money games or they play for fun games. And in fact, there are rules. Like, for example, if you have a demo in a real money game that you can play for free, the odds have to be exactly the same as the real money game because they don't want to deceive people. You have to be very upfront about this is what we pay out. It's very open. It's like we pay out 90.5% of the money you bet goes pay back to winning. So people understand that. They understand what they're getting into. They understand the entertainment and what it costs them. And, you know, occasionally people get lucky and they win thousands of dollars. And, you know, it's quite funny to wake up one morning and look at the numbers and realize that, oh my God, someone really won big yesterday. It wasn't that great of a day, but it's okay because in the long run it works out fine. App has to be certified, all has to be locked down. There can't be any security breaches, and it has to meet certain criteria. It has to do to pay. It's all highly regulated. It's not like, and then once again, why are we doing this? Because we have expertise in it. We do beautiful games, and it's not going to be easy for people to do. Everyone thinks this is something that they can just jump into. And, you know, there are some major companies that have tried to do this and backed out. 2 companies you know of. One, Zynga. Zynga tried to do real money, and now Big Fish just left the market. And I'll tell you why. It's not because they're bad companies, because my feeling is if you do this, you pretty much have to focus on it, because the expertise and what you're building is so different than normal play for fun games in terms of the way it works. It sounds like the same, you know. What's the difference between a free slot game and a paid slot game, a real money slot game? No, it's very different. You know, there's rules, there's back-end systems, there's security, there's audit trails, there's accounts. And I think if you do this, you really have to basically... We made this months and months ago, you know, almost a year ago, saying this is what we're going to do. We're going to do real money games. We've got people who have done it before, who have been doing it for decades. We're going to take advantage of that and own that marketplace. But here's the thing. We're competing against companies in the casino space that are well-established companies. Paddy Power, William Hill. These companies have been doing this for a while, so we have to be really good. But what's nice about that is when I was in the video game industry in the 80s and 90s, the thing that was cool about the industry was it was execution. You know, you knew what you were going to... You had hardware that was difficult. You had to build everything yourself. But if you were clever, you could build great games and people would buy them. And then when we got into mobile, it's like everyone's throwing crap against the wall, and and people are advertising, and you feel like my game is better. Why can't I sell my game? So in a way, the real money games are sort of back to that in the sense that the quality matters. It's such a high barrier to entry that you're not being chased by 1,000 developers. There's maybe 20 or 30 of these type of games in the store in the UK. I hope I'm not wrong, but I think that's about the right number. So you just go for complete quality, and what you do is you engage in a dialogue with the users. We talk to the users, we find out what they want. So that Candy's game, Candy's Bingo, which is one of the videos, that isn't out yet. That'll be out in a few weeks, but that was based on what we heard people wanted. You know, they wanted a bingo game that felt more interactive. But the football games is something that we decided to do because that was the cultural part of, like, if you haven't been to Europe, one thing you have to realize is, imagine if every even tiny city had a baseball stadium, even the smaller cities, and they played games all the time. That's what soccer, football is like in Europe. The games are everywhere. Played all the time. It's a huge amount of interest. I was on a train a couple of weeks ago coming back to the United States by train from Amsterdam to Brussels, Brussels to London, then fly back, and they kicked off the train at one point, football hooligans who were too drunk. It was funny as heck. You never expect that. But lots of fun. I spoke at the Casual Connect conference in Europe, in Amsterdam, on the subject of real money gaming and games in general, and I also was on a panel at the ICE Total Gaming thing in London on platforms, and I'm going to be speaking at the Ottawa International Game Conference and probably a couple others soon on similar subjects, because it's such a different world. To create these games is really, really a very different sort of art. And, like I said, this is something people love to do. And, you don't have that many land-based casinos in the UK, in the United Kingdom. So online is really big. Online gaming is really big, highly controlled, highly licensed. People are not allowed to lose a lot of money. It's very interesting. They can't, someone can take all the cash they have and walk into a casino and lose it. They can't do that on online gaming. It's highly regulated. So that's it.